Well, I'm on the phone with Coach Mark Shileds from MDI High School, as we are every Thursday and Monday during football season. And Coach, if you would, tell us a little bit about how the week has gone and how you're preparing for the Hermon Hawks on Friday night.
Yeah, Chris, we've had a good week of practice. Still surprised how warm it's been, but it looks like that's going to change quickly here in the next couple of days, so it'll feel more like football weather. But the boys been working hard, and they have been sweating a lot because it's been pretty warm. But like we said before, it's a quicker week. It's a Friday game versus Hermon as opposed to Belfast and Winslow, which we had that extra day of preparation. And the kids working hard, and I think they're hungry for a victory. Losing to Winslow after winning their first two games has kind of left a sour taste in their mouths, and they're ready to get back on the field and prove that they are a good football team, and hoping we play well Friday night.
You want them to have that sour taste in your mouth, in their mouth, and in your mouth.
Yeah, I think you have to, and we talked to the kids this week about we don't like to lose, and it doesn't feel great to lose, and how do you redeem yourself? Well, you got to go out and play well against your next opponent. And Hermon 2-1, just like us. They're on the same spot we are, and they're looking for their third win. And they're a program that they can throw the ball, they can run the ball. They have some good athletes up there. They're feeling a lot of confidence coming into this season. They have good numbers. They have good depth. And definitely not a team that anybody's going to want to overlook because they have big play capability. They have some athletes that, you think about a kickoff team or punt return team, kickoff return. Offensively, they have some threats. They like to throw the ball to some fast receivers, and they have some good running backs. So, they're a team that's up and coming, and a team that, I think they're going to give us a lot come Friday night.
Well, their quarterback is number 2 in the Big Ten in terms of passing yardage, Connor Magliozzi, and he's got 358 yards, and that's only second to Jack Thompson from Waterville that's got 382 yards. 358 yards in the year after 3 games. That's a pile of yards.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for a high school quarterback, and not only does that prove that he's a good quarterback, but it also proves that they have, some good receivers to throw the ball to, and, that's something we've worked on a lot this week, knowing that they're a team that, they want to put the ball in the air as well as pound the ball, and so, defensively it makes it difficult because they're not one-dimensional. In the past, they kind of were. They ran that double wing, real tight split, and they would just run the ball. And you knew what you were going to get, but now you don't. They have a lot of kids. They'll run jet sweep with those kids. They're speedy. They like to throw the kids out in the flat, pass it out in the flat. And they have some good running backs behind the quarterback. So, a team that has some diversity in what they do, and, they can be a challenge to try to stop.
Well, and you mentioned the receivers. Tyler Carmichael is 4th in the Big Ten with 111 receptions. Keenan Marseille, who I know from the basketball court, is 5th with 110, and Marseille, he's got some jumping capability.
Yeah, I mean, the kids know him real well because of we have, quite a few basketball players on the team, and, well aware of his athletic abilities. And, the Carmichael kid, I'm real impressed with him. He seems to be hard to bring down, number 5. He can run, he can catch. He's hard to tackle. So, they just have some weapons, and they're utilizing those weapons. They're doing a good job up there getting their athletes the ball. So, hats off to them, and they'll be hungry come Friday night, and they'll be excited to try to beat us.
Ball security is certainly an issue. The field, depending upon which weather forecast you listen to, and I'm getting 12 of them, is that, there could be rain prior to, but I'm pretty sure the ground will be able to absorb most of all the rain, but that if you get a slippery ball, that can prove to be a problem.
Definitely, and, you think about a team like Hermon, who's an up-and-coming team, probably a very emotional team. The highs are real high, and sometimes the lows are real low, and a team like that, if they start, winning the battle of the turnovers, and they start getting jacked up and excited, and they start scoring early, we're going to be in trouble because they're going to be in our face all night long, and then you think about special teams, the same thing, punt, return, and punting the ball, snapping the ball to your punter if there's a potential of wet grass. And, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong if the field gets wet. And, I have to imagine, like you said, that the field will absorb a lot of the water, but I'm sure the ball will be a little slippery. And, that was a problem we had down to, down to Winslow, putting the ball on the turf. And it doesn't matter who your opponent is. If you turn the ball over, you're probably not going to be happy by the end of the game because you're going to lose. So protect the football, definitely.
Well, that's obviously one of the keys to victory. What are the other keys to an MDI win?
Yeah, we talked about it on Monday, and, for us now it's not really adding a bunch of new stuff. I think we have a lot of offense in right now. You always will add a wrinkle or two each week depending on your opponent, but I think it's getting better at what you're doing. For our offense, running the T and the flex offenses, especially the T particularly, it takes a few weeks for that offense to start clicking, and we're slowly starting to see that happen. And, and the big thing is we knew coming in that we had a young offensive line, inexperienced offensive line, and it takes time for those guys to develop. And here we are, mid-season, and those guys are starting to figure it out, and it's fun to watch them develop. But, yeah, I mean, I think we do what we do and protect the football and play good special teams. And, I think we can give Hermon, some fits. But once again, if we decide we're going to come out flat or overlook Hermon or anything like that, turn the ball over, then we're going to be disappointed.
It's hard to believe that the season's half over after this week in terms of the regular season.
Yeah, it goes fast. I was thinking about it. It was August 15th was our first practice day, that Monday, and here we are, September 23rd come Hermon game, and yeah, we're already halfway through, and soon we'll be moving into the second half of the season, and that's really when it gets fun and exciting because you start to see the playoff picture develop, and people are jockeying for position, and every game is huge, especially in that point in the game because you kind of do know where you're going to fall eventually, and yeah, it's fun. It's exciting to think that the weather's going to start getting cooler. It's going to feel more like football, and we're on the second half of the season after Hermon.
Looking at the Big Ten Conference stat leaders, which we have on the WDEA website, I'm impressed. Chris Farnsworth, who is tied for second in the conference with 27 tackles. Micah Hallett, Gus Reeves, who are tied for ninth with 20.5 tackles each. Those are big numbers after 3 games.
Yeah, both those guys are two-way starters, kind of Iron Men. They do a lot of special teams. I mean, Chris is our long snapper for punt, and he's on kickoff, and Mike is usually on kickoff return and point after attempts, and those guys rarely ever come off the field. So it's pretty impressive to see those kind of numbers. And defensive numbers are always interesting because you don't want to have huge tackle numbers because that means you're on defense a lot. So sometimes you'll see a team like Winslow right now, their best tackler, the Fredette kid, number 33, and he has 20 tackles and 10 assists, and that would make sense to me because that he'd be somewhere in the middle there, or I think he's like fourth, I guess it is, because they're on offense a lot,
right.
Because they're hard to stop, but I think those two guys, Farnsworth and Hallett, are right where they should be. You think about Chris, he plays strong safety for us, and that's a position in our defense that should be making a lot of tackles because he's always on the strong side of the formation, and that's where a lot of teams will run because they usually have an extra man over there, and that's
the tight end, right?
Yeah, where the ball is going to go, and then you think about Micah, who he's a down lineman, and he's playing down lineman. We think this week maybe, but he's been playing linebacker. And in our 5-2 scheme, the linebackers should be the guys making most of the tackles, so that's good news. And then what I'm really most happy about, I guess, is Gus Reeves, who plays.
He's a basketball player, but he's not.
He's a football
he's a football stud this year.
Yeah, he led us in tackles down to Winslow, and you think, well, he plays free safety, coach. That's not great. But actually, in our scheme, our 5-2 scheme, we have our free safety. He's not far behind those linebackers, and he's cleaning a lot of plays up. So if we have trouble, some guy gets through the front line, gets through our linebackers, he's there to make the play. And we use what's called a robber technique. A lot of coaches do, where robber means that he sort of is eyeballing a certain player on the offensive side of the ball, and it's usually going to be one of their best players, a running back or a quarterback. And then he plays what's called an inside-out technique. So when the play's coming his way, he's moving towards the linebackers and then working to the outside of the formation for any sort of cutback. And, he's sitting with 16 tackles and 9 assists. That's great, because that means he's, sticking his nose in there. And this is a guy that he only played half the first game because he came in for Ezra Johnson, who had gotten hurt. So, Gus, we're really excited about him and the season he's having, and he's really taken on the challenge. He studies film all the time, and, he knows our opponents well, and I'm just excited he came back out for football.
And then you've got rushing leaders, Colby Lee leading the Big Ten with 465 yards, and Corey Albee, number 5th in the conference at 297. And Colby's got that breakthrough speed when he gets that hole. He has the potential to be gone at every time. And Croy, those 297 yards, those are the equivalent of about 500 yards because they're all up the gut, and they're 2 or 3, 4 at a time.
Exactly. So there's quite a difference in what their responsibilities are in our offense, and you're right. I mean, you think about Croy Albee playing fullback. I mean, those are 297 hard-earned yards because a lot of times he's pounding between the tackles almost every play. We're not trying to run him outside and get a lot of those breakaway plays. Now he's had some because he's so strong that he'll get through linebackers and some of the defensive backs and he'll bust some. Especially I think the Belfast game he had a couple long ones, but. Right. Yeah, I mean, his yards are tough yards because he's up the gut, with all the defensive tackles, all the linebackers, all the big boys. And not to say that Colby doesn't do that, because some of his runs are up the chute as well. And he's strong enough this year, being a junior, and he's worked hard getting himself stronger, that he's able to break some of those tackles of those kids and get some good gains. But we can also, with his speed, get him on the outside. And he's a tough guy. I said to Coach Arnold the other day, I wouldn't want to have to defend him because, he's one of those guys that he can hit you outside, he can hit you inside. He also blocks very well. He can catch the ball. He's a real dynamic guy. So having a big year, and the other guy that I'll talk about is Chris Farnsworth. He's my other halfback, and early on the season, honestly, I didn't feel like I was getting Chris the ball enough, and we need to be more balanced as an offense. With our 3 backs and our quarterback, and that was a big goal of mine against Winslow, and Chris had almost as many carries as Croy and Colby, and he had a big game. He's a tough guy who runs straight ahead for the most part for us, but we're going to start trying to get him on the outside as well, run some more counters with him, throw him the ball some more because he's a real good athlete. So, real fortunate to have the backs that I have this year, and then our quarterback, he's developing as well, and he's starting to run the ball a little bit more. So, I feel like the offense is slowly coming together. We still have a long way to go, but we do have some good weapons this year.
What do you want to say to the fans who may or may not be coming to the game? And if you're not coming, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I know people are busy, and I have a family of my own, and I get that. But hopefully if you can't come, you can listen to it on WDEA for sure. And, once again, thank you for your continued support. We had a nice crowd last 2 games against Belfast on the road, and then we were on the road again against Winslow last Saturday. And, we'll be home this week and then back on the road again, but then we will have some home games later in the year. But, it's been wonderful, the support we've gotten from our community and our fans, and the kids really do feel it. They get excited when they see the people there. So hopefully we can keep it going.
All right, Coach. Have a good week. We'll see you at kickoff on Friday.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you. Sounds good, Chris. Thank you. Sounds good, Chris.